Protocol. I think all protocol has been observed. My task is just to give a brief program outline in terms of what we are going to be discussing today. Our hope is that we'll be able to keep up with time. I know we are behind time at the moment, but we'll go to a slot where we'll ask Zikamai Bere to give us a background and the highlights and features of the State of the Human Rights Report. So in essence, it's going to give us a synopsis of the report itself, and then from there we have the chairperson of the NGO forum coming to give a keynote address as well as to officially launch the report. And after that we have a sort of like a discussion session where we have one of our consultants, Mr. Deo Mavinga, and one of our partners to come and lead the discussions concerning some of the key highlights of the report. From then on, I will come back to this podium and just give you a background and some of the highlights and features of the anti-impunity campaign. And after that, I'll call upon the Executive Director of the NGO Forum, Ms. Blessing Orejena, to come and also give some remarks before officially launching the campaign. But after that process, we are going to create space and room, because some of the people whom we have been referring to in the campaign as well as in the report are actually here in this room. So we want to create time for the survivors to speak for themselves, to speak out about their ordeals, to speak out about their experiences as well as in terms of their aspirations. So that will be a slot which will be led by Ms. Timudimu from the Counseling Services Unit. From then on, we open a plenary for discussion, for us to discuss the issues that would have been presented before you. And then at the end of the program, we are going to have a vote of thanks from our Executive Director, and we are going to have some refreshments. But please kindly take note of the last item, which is the all-day human rights clinic. What we are doing here is we have members of the forum, Legal Resources Foundation, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, and all other members who have come to exhibit today. They have set up desks to assist citizens, to give them information about their rights and also to provide various services which they provide. So I urge you colleagues to not just leave this room after this program, but also pass through the different stands just so you can see what the different organizations are doing to assist members of the public. Without wasting much of our time, I think I need to hand over to Mr. Zikamai Bere to give the background and highlights and features of the State of the Human Rights Report. Thank you so much.
Us chooses what they don't have. So please, as they deliberate, choose what you definitely don't have. That which you have, consolidate. Thank you.
Walk you through the report that the chairperson is going to launch in the next few minutes, and to give you the background to why we ended up with this particular report. I will ask my colleague who is on the technology machine. Yes. I think the most important thing that we need to keep at the back of our minds when we are doing this work is the welfare of the victims. So this particular report, which the chairperson is going to launch, is especially dedicated to the victims of enforced disappearances and their families, hoping that the efforts of many human rights defenders, as evidenced in this particular report, will continue to give them hope that indeed we will achieve a society that we all seek, in which all human rights are respected. Now, how did we end up with this particular report? This report captures the stories of the victims and our experiences as a nation. The forum has been in existence for the past 20 years. And since 1998 up to 2018, the coalition has grown from 6 members to 22 members. Now, these are organizations whose work is grounded in the experiences of the victims. And over the years, most of the reports, the national reports that make international headlines about our experiences as a country in terms of national appraisal of the situation are mainly international organizations that are working in the country. Now, with that realization, on the 22nd of March 2018, members of the forum came together at a reflective meeting, the Human Rights Policy and Practice meeting, where they reflected on the situation, on the human rights situation in the country, and came up to the conclusion that we need to produce a comprehensive report which addresses many aspects of human rights as told by the organizations that are working with the victims. So as you go into this report, allow me the freedom to get away from the podium just before that one. As you go into this report, you realize that there are a number of chapters. And as we open the report, we will start with trying to make sense of our human rights architecture. Yesterday, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights turned 5 years. Now, if we are going to be talking about the human rights situation in Zimbabwe, we need to agree on the standards that we are going to be using. So this particular report makes use of that human rights architecture as documented in our Bill of Rights, which turned 5 years yesterday. But the report then goes beyond, because the Constitution itself actually acknowledges that the Bill of Rights does not contain all rights. There are other statutes that then come in play, and mainly the standards that we use at the forum is the international standard. So we have treaties like the Convention Against Torture and many other treaties that we then also make use of, even though our domestic constitution may actually not capture some of those violations. So we then go forward, just stay on that, we then go forward to look at the aspects of human security. We look at fundamental freedoms, equality and non-discrimination. We look at environmental and property rights. We look at access to justice, transparency and accountability, and transitional justice, which is an important aspect. We also look at issues to do with business and human rights, among many other issues. And the report concludes by talking about how we can walk the talk, recommendations that touch not only state actors, but also non-state actors, like most of the colleagues who are operating in the civic space. Now, what are the highlights in the report? So, 5 years since our Bill of Rights came into play, the situation is tragic. So, we just walk into the report to see some of the striking figures that we get from this report. 2017, 5 people died as a result of human rights violations in Marange. Now, this report is very conservative because we only work with verified information. There could be more than that. 48,200 violations against school children. You know, we're preparing for elections, so this report unravels that particular violation, which mainly political parties are perpetrating against school children. 5,707 violations related to voter registration. 9,309 violations against women. 7 cases of abduction. 184 cases of torture. That's unbelievable. 1,873 households were evicted in 2017, affecting 6,644 people, most of them being children. And then the report talks about the 15 November military coup, a total overthrow of the Constitution, about the torture which some of the journalists from the state media endured during the takeover of the information machinery, and some of the unverified reports of killings and enforced disappearances. The report also looks at issues of spaces for persons with disability. How do we create a society that is friendly to persons with disability? So we did a survey of 21 public spaces in Harare,
and only 3 of them turned out to be friendly to persons with disabilities. Notable among the spaces which we deem to be unfriendly for persons with disabilities are most municipality facilities, the President's headquarters, Monomotapa, Cleveland House, where people are supposed to go and pay their bills, and I think the majority of banks. The report also talks about gender balance, which is one of the objectives in our constitution, and we compare how at the highest level of government we are doing in terms of achieving gender balance. So we compare the previous administration, the Mugabe government, which by the time of the overthrow had only 9 women in a cabinet of 42 ministers. And 30 November 2017, President Mnangagwa took over and appointed 6 women among 39 ministers. If you remove the ministers of state, you will actually be left with 3 women. The report talks about 42 violations against the LGBTI community. Now, what are the key features in this report? Just the next slide. So, as the report is going to be launched today, we're calling it digitally compliant because it is available in all the digital platforms. It is available on our website. You can download it there, so on the e-version. It is also available today. We are going to share the hard copy, and it is available in Braille version, in WhatsApp version. And as you walk through the report is very interactive. You will meet the QR codes. If you see on the bottom right of the screen, there are those QR codes that allow you to download the report on your phone when you scan that. But also those QR codes allow you to listen to the voices of the victims. So if you get to a page where you see that code and you actually scan that code, you will be able to see some of the testimonies of the victims. And it will also allow you to go behind the stage and listen to the voices of some of the human rights defenders who are working with these victims. I think these are the key features of this report, and I will not get into more details because the report will be with you very soon. I want to thank you.
Human Rights NGO Forum. This year, 2018, the world commemorates 70 years since the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a milestone in human history which marked an unprecedented commitment by world leaders to honor, respect, defend, and protect the dignity in each of us. Closer to home, this year as the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum, we commemorate 20 years since our coalition began in response to the 1998 food riots. The state attacked rioters ruthlessly, causing great harm and suffering. 20 years later, we take stock of how our country is doing in human rights. While our coalition has grown from 6 members in 1998 to 22 members in 2018, it gives us no pleasure to note that while our progress as civil society is a lot, our nation seems to be sliding back to where the world is running away from. In March 2018, as a forum, we sat down to reflect on the state of human rights in our country, and the results of that reflection are not good news. We have captured this situation in the 2017 State of Human Rights Report, which we are launching this morning. It is a tragedy of alarming proportions. Before I talk about the report, let me talk about the situation captured in the report. Just yesterday, 22 March, we commemorated 5 years since we adopted a new constitution. We spent hundreds of millions in the constitution-making process, and we proudly announced to the world that we now have an expanded Bill of Rights, incorporating socio-economic rights, cultural rights, gender equality, rights of persons with disability, among many other good aspects of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. But what are constitutions if we do not practice the value that they celebrate? The 2017 State of Human Rights Report, the first comprehensive domestic human rights situation appraisal, is a tough and honest rebuke on us. Allow me to walk you through the house we have built and see the victims that we have hidden in this house. In the year 2017, our Constitution suffered the worst form of violation since its own birth. Constitution Amendment number 1 was just dragged through, despite protests that this was turning back the clock, with the effect of compromising the independence of the judiciary. Everyone remembers the military coup of November 2017, the complete overthrow of the Constitution, sowing seeds of great uncertainty. In the Marange diamond fields, security guards from the Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company were implicated in the deaths of 5 villagers: Didmas Ngorima, Kudzai Zambuko, Wanda Kaiza, and Kudzai Mariburi. They are no longer with us, all because of diamonds. May their souls rest in peace. While our Constitution provides for freedom from eviction with a court order, in 2017 our government evicted 1,873 households from their homes. While we celebrate a Constitution that provides for gender balance, we have a government that is essentially a boys' club, with only 6 women out of 39 ministers appointed on 30 November 2017. Do we then wonder why in 2017 alone, we recorded 9,309 violations against women? While we celebrate the Constitution, which provides for the children's rights, in 2017 alone, we documented in this report 48,200 violations against school children. While we claim to celebrate inclusivity, our social spaces squeeze out persons living with disabilities. The municipalities are the biggest culprits in this matter, followed by the President's office. Out of 21 buildings and spaces surveyed in 2017, only 3 had disability-friendly facilities. I think Zikamai alluded to those issues earlier on. On environment, the municipalities again were the biggest culprits for non-collection of refuse and for pumping poisonous water into our homes. These are just but a few highlights on the state of human rights in our country. Our report covers much more detail, including issues of access to justice, transitional justice, transparency and accountability, business and human rights. We must address these issues and do so urgently. The report tries to understand what are the factors that contribute to this horrible state of affairs in our country. It further tried to rank the perpetrators, and one of the factors supporting the culture of human rights violations is the issue of impunity. How do we deal with impunity? How do we challenge impunity? As we reflect on the 20 years that we have traveled as a forum, we have seen many efforts by members of the forum to challenge impunity and hold perpetrators of human rights violations accountable. One only understands the magnitude of these problems when you analyze the ranking of perpetrators. Topping the list of perpetrators in the 2017 State of Human Rights Violations report is Zanu-PF, followed by the police. Zanu-PF is implicated in violations related to voter intimidation and violence. ZRP is implicated in mass evictions, torture, and attacks on vendors. In terms of severity, the Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company tops the list, implicated in the death of 5 people in Chiadwa. But when you look at these actors, these are all in close proximity. to the state, hence the police are reluctant to investigate and hold such people to account. So we do have a real problem amongst us. Until we stand up against impunity, we remain stuck with the situation. As the forum, we have taken a stand against impunity. Today, as we launch the 2017 State of Human Rights Report, we also launched the anti-impunity campaign that seeks to reconfigure the relationship between the police and the people of Zimbabwe. We will be talking more about that later. As I conclude, allow me to say that the human rights situation in our country is depressing, to say the least. As you read through the report, you will hear the voices of the victims. Through the special features inside the reports, you will listen to the testimonies. You will see their wounds. The question is, what will we do about it? This year, we are inviting you not to simply take stock of where we are coming from, but also to take a stand against impunity, in order to hold perpetrators of human rights violations to account. We beg you all to please join us and do something. When you see something, say something. Take a picture, send an SMS. Let us work together to build a country where no child will ever go to bed hungry, where a wife will never wonder what happened to her husband. Let us build a Zimbabwe where human life is sacred once again and everyone's dignity matters, regardless of gender, race, sexual orientation or gender identity, faith, age, political affiliation, ethnicity, economic status. May that be our goal as we strive to change the state of human rights. I thank you.
To human rights work is something that I really want to cherish. In this report, which is really groundbreaking in that it is the first of its kind, Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum partners involved, the entire membership, 22, have decided to have a comprehensive document that speaks to, over the year, human rights abuses, violations, but not only that, a human rights architecture with the mission or goal to ensure that there is a realization or a promotion of all human rights in Zimbabwe. And this is no easy task, because when we talk of human rights issues, the understanding of human rights, I must say, I might disappoint many, is difficult in Zimbabwe. I'll give you an example of what we might call box ticking, where people believe that these are values that we can talk about, but that may be external to us. So, for example, when you look at political parties, the MDCT, for example, they might espouse values of tolerance, right? But if you witness what happened at the Supreme Court yesterday, the abuses, the harassment, the violence, these things show clearly that sometimes we need, at a personal level, at an individual level, to reflect on human rights values, to live those values, to be guided by those values. So this is the articulation. So when we talk of living the human rights values, some of the biggest perpetrators are the people who have a responsibility to protect the human rights space. So for example, in 2017, as the Human Rights Forum report shows, the biggest perpetrators were actually the police, whose primary responsibility is to be protecting rights. But why do we have, people violating rights? One of the challenges that we need to confront as a society is the idea that we can somehow rationalize and justify abuse. So when you see people, they first, at an individual level, at a family level, they might say, well, differences justify, different treatment, for example. So we fail to acknowledge that human rights, there are different rights. People with disabilities need to have their rights respected. The LGBTI community needs to have their rights respected. People with albinism, for example, or people with different views, political views. If you look at the widespread, appalling political violence that has been documented across the country, it is simply because people believe that if you hold a different political opinion, then there is some justification for you to be treated differently. Also, state institutions are hollow, as clearly shown here, that they are not in a way properly equipped to be respecting rights. The police, the soldiers, we have got in the Constitution section 210, which says there should be a complaints mechanism that should be available to citizens to complain for remedial action when their rights have been abused. But that has not happened. That has not been set up. That hasn't been implemented. So you would find that when we talk of rights, sometimes the mechanisms are not there, and sometimes there are people who believe that they can elevate themselves above the law. So there is no equality before the law, and that's a big challenge for human rights respect. So the idea that people can elevate themselves above the law, I'm not just talking about the police as the biggest violators in 2017, but even at a family level, individuals may feel that they are justified in ill-treating or abusing or violating the rights of members of the family, for example. So let's take, for example, domestic violence that is documented, or abuses of children, you know, the pledging of children in marriage, or child marriage challenges that we have seen. People should begin to believe that all human rights are indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated, and therefore should all be promoted. But we need to live these values. And because we need to live these values, the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum has begun this initiative, which is not just a launch of this report, by the way, but there is an entire process that goes into the report, which includes the involvement of membership, of citizens, of victims of abuses, coming together over the years, having ways of recording and reporting abuses, of challenging the system and calling for accountability, of submitting recommendations. And this kind of structure then says we are building a human rights community. So we are not just giving reports that do not have individuals who have been affected, but we are saying over the years, what have we seen? What have we documented? What areas do we need to work on going forward so that we can achieve ultimately a society that is respectful of all human rights, and we can enjoy the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So on that note, I would want to say really this is an excellent document, a good beginning, but not only a document, but a networking space for us to continue to promote the enjoyment of all human rights in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Violations which involve the police, in the sense of the police being complicit to violations, where the police are actually perpetrators of violence. I think you get an opportunity to hear from one of the survivors of police brutality, who will speak to you and just give you an inkling of the many cases that we have of citizens that have suffered at the hands of police officers. In addition to that, from our research that we've conducted, I think we all know that there was pervasive political violence in 2008. There was very little that was done by the police in terms of bringing perpetrators to account. In actual fact, most of the clients that we serve who came to offices reported to say the police simply said, it's a political matter, we can't handle it. So in essence, the police have played a critical role in not only fueling the violations themselves, but they've also played a critical role in terms of perpetuating the culture of impunity. By impunity, what we are simply meaning is we are talking about the lack of accountability. We are talking about the barriers to justice. We are talking about violations going unchecked. We are talking about perpetrators not being held to account. So what is the effect of this? The effect of this is that we have perpetrators walking in our midst, walking in the streets. They are all over the place. And the people who have been wronged are now crippled, and some of them cannot come to the police to report the matter, because if you ask them, they'll simply say, why bother? We reported this case when we were violated in 2000, in 2002, in 2006, in 2008, up to this day, nothing has been done. So as the forum, what we are trying to do in terms of this campaign is not to denigrate the police. We are not really coming out to say we don't need the police. Contrary, we are coming out to say we need the police. It's a key institution. We need them because they are the key or the gatekeepers of the justice delivery system. They are the point of entry for any citizen who has been aggrieved. So what do we have to do in terms of ensuring that we have a police service which adheres to the standards set in section 219 of the Constitution? What we can do is, firstly, we want to create a platform for citizens to be able to report violations committed by the police. It's one of the many challenges that you can ever face as a citizen. If you are violated by a police officer, where do you go and report? They tell you to go to the crimes committed by police desk at the Arrest Central Police Station, which is manned by police officers. And that makes it very difficult for a victim to approach the same police officers to seek redress for violations committed by police officers. And what happens if you are a citizen, you report a matter and nothing is done by the police? Where do you go? Because the criminal law, as we know, is a prerogative or a preserve of the state. Only the state is the one which pushes for criminal proceedings, save for the citizen or private prosecutions, which I will not mention at this particular moment. So what this campaign is trying to do is to create this platform where citizens can call, SMS, WhatsApp, walk in, send messages via Facebook, via Twitter to the NGO forum, reporting complaints in relation to the police. By complaints, I reiterate, commission and omission. Commission means the police are the ones who perpetrated the violations or they are complicit in the violations. By omission, we mean the violation was committed and I reported the police and nothing has been done. And what we hope to do is when we receive those complaints, we have a team which is ready to go and verify the complaints. After we verify the complaints, we will take appropriate action. Our appropriate action includes litigation, civil litigation. It includes following up on criminal prosecution. It includes approaching the independent commissions said in Chapter 12 of the Constitution, like the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, and following up on behalf of citizens. If you look at it from this small angle and then go to the global picture, what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to create a new culture of accountability. We want police officers to be aware that whatever they do, they will be held accountable for it. If a police officer walks in right now and assaults someone and you do not know his name, what do? I think Trevor, when he comes to give you his story, he'll give you some of the challenges that he faced in trying to assess justice. Just by trying to identify who the police officer is a challenge for an ordinary citizen. So we want to step into the void and provide that service. Why are we stepping in the void? We are stepping in the void because there is an independence complaints mechanism that is supposed to be established in terms of Section 210 of the Constitution, which is meant to receive complaints from members of the public against all the security services. But that has not been created. So as a way of addressing that gap, the forum has created this campaign, specifically focusing on the police for now, because I've already explained to you the police play a critical role in terms of the justice delivery system. But not to mean that we are only going to focus on the police, but going forward we are going to focus on all the arms of government, all the state actors. For now we are focusing on the police because we have seen that from our research, in 2017, the police were responsible for 24% of the violations, higher than any other state actor. And we have seen from our research that in 2008, of all the matters that were reported to the police, only 11% were actually actioned upon. So it is because of that, that is why we are launching this particular campaign. The objective of the campaign are, in short, we want to facilitate dialogue between the police and members of the public. We want to create a platform whereby we can check the complaints of the public and present them before the police, for the police to give us an answer in terms of what the public is complaining about. We want to ensure police misconduct reports are handled timeously and in a transparent manner. We want to have a follow-up mechanism to check on those disciplinary proceedings. What has happened to the police officer was implicated in violations. We want to follow up on those issues. We want to ensure that all citizens are equal before the law. We are trying to combat the issue of partisan application of the law or selective application of the law, where some citizens seem to be above the law. We want to create a situation whereby we can enforce upon the police the need for them to ensure that all citizens are held equal before the law. We want to work towards image restoration and public confidence in the police service. Currently, I think we're at a record low in terms of public confidence in the police service. Most citizens have expressed very little confidence in the police. So what we're trying to do is to restore that confidence by creating a police force which is accountable to the public. We want to create and foster that sense of ownership among citizens for them to claim the police, to say, this is our police. Mapulisa edu, amapolisa etu. We want to promote accountability through strengthening the relationship between the police and other stakeholders. And lastly, we want to maximize cooperation between the police and the citizen. So basically, this is what the campaign is all about. There is a pamphlet which has been created which gives a rundown of what the campaign is about. And I'm sure there are some ladies who are going to move around and give you a copy of each. With that, it just leaves me to call upon our executive director to give the remarks and as well as to officially launch the campaign. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I will observe all protocol. Justice is a universal notion. It is indeed an African concept. In Shona, we say Mosha Hairovi, which translates to mean no justice will go unaccounted for. The forum on this occasion embraces these African ethos and values. On the 25th of May, just in 2 days' time, the entire African continent will be joining together to commemorate and celebrate Africa Day. It is my pleasure and singular honor to launch the forum's anti-impunity campaign, Our Police, Mapulisa Edu, to coincide with the Africa Day commemorations. The forum since 1998 has worked tirelessly to ensure justice and accountability for victims of human rights violations in Zimbabwe. Yet to this day, some of the perpetrators of the most gory crimes and violations still roam the streets scot-free. They still terrorize entire communities, enjoying protection from the law under the veil of political patronage and the shield of corruption. Victims of political violence in Zimbabwe since 1980 still wait for justice to be delivered to this day, whilst perpetrators of violations revel in their notoriety. Zimbabwe's history is a history of silence. The deathly silence concerning the whereabouts of the disappeared. Silence about those who robbed and continue to plunder the nation's resources. Silence about the people who were maimed, raped, killed, forgotten under the cloak of moments of madness, which recur again and again. So as we look forward to the Africa Day commemorations, we as Zimbabweans need to introspect and ask ourselves, what is our culture? Is ours not a culture of impunity now? Mosha dzirikurova wanu. Justice has been elusive, whilst crimes have been pervasive. The forum today is proud to stand resolute and call for us to retrace our steps back to our ethos. We call for accountability and an end of impunity in Zimbabwe. It is in light that today we officially launch a campaign called Our Police, Mapulisa Edu, Amapolisa Etu campaign. The police are critical in ensuring that citizens access justice, but in recent years, they have proved to be complicit in violations and have refused to carry out their constitutional mandate to arrest and bring perpetrators to account. In 2017, as we have all heard, the police, according to the reports received by the forum, were responsible for 24% of the violations received. And concerning the violations of 2008, the police only took less than 11% of the cases reported to them. Those were the cases that were investigated. This therefore raises the question, where can an ordinary citizen register a complaint against the police? Our response to this question is this campaign, which will enable citizens to report violations committed by the police, either by commission or omission, to the forum, which will in turn take it upon itself to represent citizens in pursuit for justice. We are today waging a war, not against the police, far from it. We are embracing the police as our own. Mapurisa edu, amapolisa edu, our police. We are inviting all citizens to work towards ensuring that we have a professional, accountable, non-partisan police force, which is national in character. Today we wage war against this monster called impunity. We work to reclaim our values and ethos as Zimbabweans and as Africans. With these few words, I would like to take this opportunity to launch our campaign. Our police, Mapurisa Edu, Amapolisa Edu. Thank you so much.
Bullets with a guy called Alexandra Chachi. Akandipfura ndakarara basi. Was zvakazvaitika ndezvekuti there were investigations dzavaitoita over a property yavaitsvaga which was stolen. Saka paakasvika paterminal akabva nditi buruka mota, ndaburuka mota pambari pagate on Avon Lee. Saka bva nditi raise up your hands. I did and I complied to his orders. Saka ndakarara kudaro, that's when he took turns. Sekundipfura makumbo 8 bullets and apedza kundipfura bva andisa handcuffs. Then bva anditi chipinda mota. By then I was a student at Sapa Women's University. I was doing the business management, entrepreneurship. And I ended up to an exam. And during the process I was left with about 2 exams which I was supposed to write. So it means I just finished writing the 3rd one. Saka from there, and then I was in the hospital. That was after 5 hours of the shooting. So you can imagine the bleeding during that time, and I could not get medical attention quickly. Saka it resulted in me getting an amputation. As you can see, my left limb introductions are prosthesis that I use for my mobility. And up to now, the Dorinima inconveniences are wonder at times where the child will not affect in this one, the right limb is affected. Ndakato insert my metal plates. Saka, it's a challenge. In 2012, that Kipore was a after that I had to go to school the wheelchair. Imagine watch farmers and when you started college or watch to farm which is Fambira, then all of a sudden wapa wheelchair. Title that you see one to drop one also Torwa again, that paid my lectures. I managed to pay the school graduator in 2012. Saka. At least the power you put in the farmer. That's when I got to know about NGO forum. I've been working with Tafazo Christmas. He's been the guy who's been helping me in the issue. Saka, it's been a challenge to get information regarding this officer. Because at one point, PGHQ, they resisted to divulge information. Alexandra Jachi, where does he stay? And that is stationed in Kupi. And what's his force number? All that information. We never gave up. To go try our best so that justice could come out. Saka no school at one point I got to get the mobile number ya Alexandra Chachwacho, and that will be with a colleague when I explained the issue and what had happened to me. Saka antipa that number. I started talking to him on WhatsApp. Then I remember him telling me that whatever you're going to do in Chaoja trial quit, you're not going to win because I've already covered the issue of my courts, meaning to say without trial that I say before ndakatokupa hangu mari yacho, which I used kuendesa mumacourts to cover up the issue. So you see, it's so painful, especially you are just a civilian, you do not have power, and someone just because of legitimate power or something like that. So up to now, I did not compensation and I'm appealing to the end of compensation because at 1.5 round we had to shy for High Court. We interfered with going for the issue. 5 over a shy for about 6 months. Then lucky enough for it happened he met a guy who is a long time friend. And the other was with our sister. Kuzo kwanza kutitoa the file back. So the court vezo for a judgment. But after court have a judgment, we still face the same challenge. You could PGHQ didn't want to release information pertaining the judging. And at one point, I was in the acting field for quite some time. Another 2008, when I studied high school. So I explained that these are the late executive producer where is the small house because we are an actor. I was one of the artists there. So she had a plan. You could see a program per ZTV, which was supposed to be called Painful Experiences, whereby I go to tell you my issue and what happened and the challenges Zanu-PF. So right now, look at my inconveniences and now even mobility challenges. You need to rely on a car for your day-to-day movement, and besides your business-wise, I never even tried looking for a job even after I finished college because of the condition. Young, I knew it was going to be a challenge. So now that we are in the new dispensation, I hope I might get my compensation because that's what I want, to be compensated. But at times, it's my emotional feelings are so serious, and physically is not only affect and psychologically. At times, I face my challenges. At least for I could have managed to do ABC. So you can see right now the process we are trying to garnisha account so that whatever comes, the ones of one compensation. But still it's a challenge because with my lawyer, but the process correspond they delay even correspond. And at times, one don't want to as if they don't want the truth to come out. And besides that, no one came and charge could you motion your card up to date and don't go serious or anything. So you could think all the inconveniences that I ended up for the past 7 years and up to now, it was just serious and anything, justice, I said here, you don't take its course. So that's what I'm asking for. But at least I know so my human rights. And besides that, there hasn't been any disciplinary action which has been taken against this police officer. He's still serving as a police officer. And Basinia he killed a guy, Angari Opasini, where I was shot, Ananzi Jerry. Akafa, it was never mentioned that Panamuna Akafa on that scene. So it's something else. It's something else. What I can say is at least the whole government, how best can it deal with my issues and die, especially when I'm innocent, or at least could buy to our my investigations before passed by to action. You could know from car and muna hospitalized, you don't even make a follow-up. You could tell me that I say. And like I said, in my handcuffs after that before, I got spend about 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital. And at the same time in my handcuffs. So you can imagine the pain and everything, or even the image I'm sure to Chakato result to this amputation even my doctors, when I went to hospital, right on the neck later, thinking good, yeah, perhaps nditori error or something. Saka attention medical and now comes up with one and later on. Saka it resulted to me, or even the costs that really involved, you can think of them, my operations, because I've been in theater, I'm sure about 7 times. I've been in theater, and it was processing grafting at first, and it was another process that was amputated below the knee until now. So I know out there could be people the same challenge like mine. I saw with the police, but they don't know where to go and who to approach. And some of them want to threaten, like I said, in this guy, I got to threaten at one point. I shouldn't do that. You see, I want to hold for a win. It's going to die like that. Saka ndinongo ejo kuna vanhu kunzo even amadzavo kana vanhu vakakwara, please musasiye kuti nyaya dzakadai dzingo. At least you could visit the NGO forum vanokubatsirai. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
You agree with me that
for these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.